Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
All right, well, welcome to Getting to Know You. My name is Joe Nash. Today we're going to be talking about Irish American history, specifically in Albany. We have with us Pat Hale. He's the head of the Capital District Irish American Association, and former Assemblyman Jack McEneny, who is known for his historical perspectives on all kinds of things. But today we're going to keep him to the Irish in Albany. So welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Now, Pat, we're going to be talking about the AOH, which is an Albany Ancient Order of Hibernians. But before we started, can you talk about this umbrella group? Because I didn't know there was so many Irish organizations in Albany.
Yes, the Capital District Irish American Association is the owners of the 375 Ontario Street building. We're the umbrella that, through us, all these various Irish organizations have a home. That would include the AOH Division 5, the Ladies Ancient Order of Hibernians Division 1, the Sons and Daughters of Aaron Pipe Band, the Farrell School of Irish Dancing, Irish Motorcycle Club, Irish Rowing Club, Capital District Irish Set Dancers, Cahaltis Canteri Aaron have their events there, and any other Irish group that needs a place to meet.
Did you say Irish American Motorcycle Club?
Yes, there is an Irish Motorcycle Club, Irish American, obviously. I don't belong to it, but they use our facilities. One of our members is a motorcycle enthusiast, and she started the organization. And there's a group of them that do runs for, representing the Irish motorcycle group.
So the Hibernians, why don't we start there?
Okay.
They've been around in Albany since you were telling me before, started since the 1890s. Why don't you tell us who they are and how that came about?
Well, the Ancient Order of Hibernians is an organization that was formed back in Ireland to protect the church from British oppression. They would be the lookouts when Mass was going on in the field or the hills. They'd be making sure no one was coming down the road with guns.
I'm finding out about my own history here, too.
Yeah. It moved to America, obviously. One of the biggest things that we were fighting were the Know Nothing Party at the time, which was extremely anti-Catholic. So they also at one point surrounded St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City to protect it from certain peoples that were...
The old one.
Oh, okay.
The old one,
yeah.
yes.
Still there, but
Still there. So the Albany Division formed in 1896. We celebrated our centennial in 1996, and we're now 118 years old. We've been growing and thriving ever since that time. When we formed in 1896, there were 4 other divisions here in Albany. There was about 6 in Schenectady. There was a few more in Cohoes. There was many more in Troy. All the different, because in the time you were obviously walking everywhere or riding a horse, divisions formed in the populous areas of the city. So when we formed in Arbor Hill, we were a branch off of Division 4, which was right in the cathedral area downtown. So we formed up in the Arbor Hill area. We've been the only one, unfortunately, who's survived it.
Okay.
So we still exist. We're still growing. We are now, I just found out last night, the 3rd largest division in the state of New York, and we're about 5th largest in the nation.
Oh, okay.
We've got over 500 members. Long Island still beats us, I think. Okay. There's a couple of divisions down there that are rather large. And the one thing I like, and we were talking about it earlier, is that we're still attracting young people. I mean, I was at a meeting in March, and we brought in something like 24 new members.
There's an Irish football group now, which we didn't have
yes,
a
that's
few
right.
years
I
ago.
forgot about them.
Yeah, and that's obviously the younger crowd.
Okay. So you're attracting younger people.
We're attracting younger people. I think younger people are still attracted to ethnic organizations because they're now looking for their roots. Where did I come from? Where did my grandfather come from? Why did he come? And so there's a lot of interest in genealogy. There's a lot of interest in ethnic culture and what is the culture of the people that I come from. Why do I tap my foot so crazily every time I hear music? You know, what is it? And we help them hopefully discover it through various programs that we offer internally, to the music groups we bring into, the dance groups, the speakers. All these things help you learn and discover where your roots are. And
all right, so Jack, for some historical perspective, what are all these Irish people doing in Albany, and how did they get here?
Well, they actually come over in different waves, literally going back to the 1600s and the 1700s, and a lot of them got assimilated because, particularly for Irish Catholics, which was the original core, but the CDIAA accepts anybody of any faith or none at all. But the AOH, you had to be a Roman Catholic. Well, you couldn't have a Catholic church prior to the American Revolution in New York State. So there's a lot of people who were Irish. Ethnically, they'd be Celtic stock Irish Catholic, like General Sullivan. And everyone said, oh, he must have been Scotch-Irish because he's a revolutionary general. Well, there was no place to go to church for most of them, and they slipped over. And it's called the Great Scotch-Irish Myth. You find names like Sullivan and McCarthy, and believe me, they're not Scotch-Irish, they're just Irish. But once the church was established, then you could keep your identity. And that was St. Mary's, second oldest church in New York State. It is organized in 1796 and built in 97 and 98. They still have the old cornerstone inside that has a skull and crossbones and three names on it of trustees, one French and two Irish. But when the Erie Canal came, then an extraordinary increase in the number of Irish who were disproportionately represented in politics. They had an Irish Greens regiment during the War of 1812, and when that was followed, then that was followed by the railroad, and then the railroad brought in a great number of people, and then finally, probably the saddest story in all of Irish history is the Great Famine, and the famine. You'll see people say 1847. No, it started in August of 1845, and it wasn't until 1852 that the birth rate finally exceeded the deaths.
The famine was actually 7 years long? Or?
Yes, to one, and then there was a fallout, an aftershock. That probably, if you counted the fact that half the island spoke Irish as a first language. And between 1841, that's their census year, and the old British system still is, they had officially over 8 million Irish, probably a good undercount, a high birth rate, so they're somewhere pushing 9 million people. Well, by the turn of the century, there were 3 million people left on the entire island of Ireland. 1 million died outright during the famine, 2 million emigrated, but then this constant drain of people just continued. So when you go over to the Hibernian Hall, you'll find people whose parents and grandparents came from Ireland, or they came from Ireland. Then you'll find people like myself. All 8 of my great-grandparents were in Albany, New York by the 1840s. Nobody got here after 1850.
Now, did many people, was Albany the destination, or did they go somewhere first and then somehow end up in Albany?
I think most of them came almost immediately in the 19th century. I did a little research on that because I assumed, they would go one place, then another, then another. Most of them seemed to know where they were going, probably the promise of a job or knowing where there was construction. There's a book out on the Syracuse Irish, and I just assumed they were the Albany Irish moved west. They had all the biographies. Everybody came direct. They'd go to Canada and go down as quickly as they could.
Okay. Now, Pat, down at the hall, do you have some of this history, like in, I don't know, pictures, or you have an archive or a little library or anything?
Well, there's an archive with our national organization.
Okay.
And they have the history of the Hibernians in America. And those archives, one of the archives is actually down in downtown Albany at the Irish American Heritage Museum. It's split up around the country, and where there's people actually going into them and documenting and making sure what we have and all that. In Albany,
the O'Dwyer family has been very
Yes.
good to the museum, specifically in putting in the library down there, which is a pretty good size and grows constantly.
Okay.
but when it comes to our own information, we have our minutes from 1896 right on through. All our books of the minutes are there. In fact, I did a history of the division, sort of, for a speech I gave at one point where I went through, talk about reading some strange writings, because they're all handwritten, and, you know, picked out some key important things, because we moved around the city a lot, too, before we actually purchased in the 1950s. We purchased our Sherman Street building. In the 60s, we built the Quayle Street building, and then in the late 90s, we bought the 375 Ontario Street building.
Now, for both of you, maybe you could both answer this. You've been involved, you were telling me before, your whole life with these organizations, and were your parents and grandparents all involved?
My mother and father met at the Hibernian Hall. My wife and I met in the Hibernian Hall. I have one sister who met her husband in the Hibernian Hall. Now, I'm one of 8, so they all didn't meet in the Hibernian Hall, but, you know, there's a couple of us that have. And cousins that are married to, you know, met in the Hibernian. The Hibernian Hall, what we refer to the Hibernian Hall, where the Capital District Irish American Association, was always sort of the gathering place for the Irish. I mean, when I was growing up, we were there every weekend. If not, you were there for whatever. There was always a dance going on the weekends. Everybody, and they never start until 10 o'clock at night. You lived there, so you walked. There was no driving, so and the Quayle Street building didn't have a parking lot because everybody lived in Arbor Hill. You'd walk there, you'd get out at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, you'd go home, you'd go to breakfast, you'd do whatever, but everybody in there you knew. Everybody, and it was all, I mean, I'm one of 8. There was plenty of families that was an average number of kids. You know, 5 to 10 is not an unusual.
Well, I'm one of 6, so
we won't hold that against you.
So, Jack, what about yourself? Are you?
I'm a life member. I joined in college age. I've been there 48 years now. My father was not a member, but his father was. And I think one thing about our AOH, which is essentially merged with all the others, we're the last man standing, but that doesn't mean
the 4 that disappeared.
The original
it doesn't
ones
mean they all
disappeared.
disappeared. It just made sense to have what became the central AOH. And what was different in Albany is we had, I think, a much stronger and more genuine music tradition, because we had a number of families, the Leonards and the Kellys, that actually were the musicians themselves, and they kept that art alive. And when you'd go to another city and they had an Irish group, they'd be either listening to Bing Crosby or the Clancy Brothers, whereas we had a lot of the traditional music going right back to the island of Ireland, and that never changed. We kept a lot of it alive, and sometimes the young people would come from Ireland and say, my grandmother used to dance to that.
So these were like local. Besides keeping the tradition alive, they actually played the music.
They played the music, and not only the Kellys and Leonards, but we also had Mike Flanagan, who was one of the most well-known of Irish entertainers worldwide. His records went back to Ireland back in the 30s, because my father remembers hearing his records of him and his brother when he was a kid in Ireland, because that's the only music at that time they had. They'd have the crank player, and but they were lucky they'd have a record or two. And even when Irish radio finally went on, Flanagan Brothers, Michael Coleman, all the old Irish names that were very popular in this country, because most of them recorded here, were the first ones played over there. So we kept that tradition always, because Flanagan was right here in Albany. He played with the Leonards and the Flaherty's and the Kellys. So that tradition was kept in Albany, and music has always been a very key element. The other thing I think that helped the Albany division survive is a lot of our members were Irish born. So we had the members that were in the organization, but in Albany they kept joining, and where a lot of the other cities unfortunately didn't have as many Irish immigrants. Troy did. Schenectady was more of American Irish. They were all more second, third, fourth, fifth generation. They weren't getting as many right from Ireland coming and immigrating, where Albany and Troy did. So Albany got more and obviously survived to really keep the tradition alive. So every dance on a Saturday night, it was Irish music.
Okay.
You'd have 2 or 3 American songs, but the rest, you were doing the Irish ceilidh dancing, and you were doing the folk dancing, and you were dancing, and you were up there sweating because they're not into slow music that much, except for the occasional waltz.
So Jack, why do you think so many of these Irish people came directly from Ireland right to Albany, though?
Because it was a mecca for them. It's still the city's. The county is well over 25% are Irish or part Irish. The same is true of Rensselaer County. And they were attracted by the jobs and, of course, chain migration. Chain migration is your older kid goes out and he sends back for his kid's sister, and then they write to the cousin, and you'll see. I know people, parents came from Ireland, but my grandmother was here in the 1890s. There's just a lot of that chain migration, and it was a welcoming community.
Well, since we're talking a little bit about the old days in Albany, did the other ethnic groups have very similar kinds of organizations?
I would say so. I mean, the Polish club is still alive and kicking. There's 2 of them.
They're over 100 years old.
Yeah. The Italians have always had organizations, either the Italian Brotherhood or various other...
Sons of Italy.
Sons of Italy.
And they have their own museum now also.
Yes.
In Albany?
Yeah, we work, their museum and our museum work very closely on.
Okay. So, or were we going to...
I was just trying to think of any other ethnic
Well,
groups.
the one,
German clubs.
Yeah,
there was a
that's
couple
right.
of German clubs.
Yeah, sure.
There's one, well, there was one off Fuller Road.
Schutzen Park.
They had a club there.
There
and
used to
there's
be
another one in
many
Troy.
more German clubs, and the World War I anti-German feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, we had German newspapers, we had the Papa bands in the street, the singing societies, and all of that was toned down after World War I.
Okay, so Pat, you were saying some of the younger people you're getting in now, they're interested in their...
A lot of people are interested in why their ancestors came, or why their grandfathers or their great-grandfathers came, and they're looking for their ethnicity. A lot of them are looking for avenues in the genealogy role, and both the Hibernians and the Irish American Heritage Museums have genealogists come and do workshops with them on a regular basis. A lot of them are interested to the music, the dance. I mean, we had the Farrell School of Irish Dancing, which teaches children Irish step dancing. Mike Flatley and Riverdance and Lord of the Dance certainly did a major influx on Irish dancing and the popularity of Irish dancing. The bagpipe band, obviously, I mean, I think we've had a bagpipe band in the Hibernian. This is the 3rd or 4th one over the years.
You were saying on Thursdays you have the pipes in the pub or something, but you said the whole building is filled with people practicing?
Pretty much. The sons and daughters of Aaron, Thursday night is their practice night where they're all learning new tunes. And so if you walk into just about any room in the hall, there are people sitting around tables learning on the chanters and the pipers, and there's drummers in the other room, and then they get together at some point where they do the mass forming of everybody, and they practice, and they practice as a group. So it could be in the pub, it could be outside during the nice weather. Sometimes they go outside and do it, and you can see the neighbors coming out with their coffee after dinner, just sitting there watching.
We also
listening.
have a very strong commitment to live music and musicians. So usually on a Friday night, there's a pub as well as the big hall that just got redecorated, and you'll have an Irish singer there, and it's live music, and that's a wonderful thing.
Can anyone go to these events? Or?
Basically, to attend the events, you're supposed to be a guest.
If
you're a guest of a member. I mean, we do have a club license, so members and their guests are always welcome. If you don't know anybody, trust me, you'll meet somebody very quickly. We're a very friendly group, and I mean, we want to bring new people in, so, you'll become a friend, and literally you will.
And then the website, is it Hibernians.com? Or is it going to be changing,
right now.
You were telling me?
Well, Hibernians.com is staying, but the Capital District Irish American Association is developing their own, which we hope to have up within another month or two.
Well, then, speaking of events, you got some events coming up here in June we can talk about. First up is you're having a big garage sale.
Yes,
The hall on the 6th and 7th? So on?
Yep, the 6th and 7th of June. Every year we have 2 garage sales, one just before Christmas for people who want to go a little Christmas shopping, and one in the summer months. And we encourage anyone who wants to get rid of old furniture and, what we consider old, somebody else considers wonderful. So,
Sure.
And we have a big, huge garage sale where, it's usually a very profitable garage sale, and then we try to donate a lot of the stuff to various other church groups that are doing garage sales as well, if there's anything left.
And that's
That's June 6th and 7th. Friday night is the pre-garage sale where you can come in and
will there be music
7th.
going on during the garage sale?
Well, there will be on Friday night. The bar will be hopping. I mean, there's live music every Friday night. So Saturday we'll have one of the speakers on, but we don't have live music for the garage sale.
And then people can bring in stuff right down there up until June 5th?
Up until June 5th, they will take stuff that you want to
can
donate.
go down anytime?
Anyone, well,
I mean,
you can go down anytime.
Okay.
It's not open every single day, but at all hours. But any evening,
You can bring
usually bring stuff down.
and it says here on my notes, you're looking for, it says no electronics, books and furniture, and if you bring clothes, new clothes only. But anything else? Is that what? Am I
Anything
reading,
else?
Am I reading that right? Okay.
Books. A lot of people get rid of books, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't buy books.
Yes.
So, I mean, we end up with books and
we have that
boxes.
problem here at the library.
Yes.
We have
Especially with Nooks and other
Yes,
things coming
I
out
know.
now. But so they don't accept electronics anymore because they just get bombarded with stuff that doesn't work.
Yes, I can.
And they don't take books. Clothing, if you want to get new clothing, they'll take. They don't do a lot of clothing,
but-
but anything new that you want to.
And no furniture, it says here. Or they just mean
I
big
would
giant.
say they will take small furniture.
Small furniture.
You know, little tables, chairs, kitchenettes, things of that nature.
Okay.
I don't think they want any major couches or anything. A little hard to get rid of.
And then on June 14th, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., this is the first annual, you're honoring Rosemary OBrien. Why don't you tell us what this event is?
Rosemary OBrien was our major fundraiser for the last 20 or 30 years. She was a tireless worker. She raised more money for the Capital District Irish American Association than anyone else, really. She just continually, nonstop. When one fundraiser event ended, we were doing another. Everything from raffles to the garage sale, which she had basically started years ago. And she's the one who built the Famine Memorial on donations, which we have outside our building. And that is what this activity is for. It is basically an event to support the Famine Memorial. And the Famine Memorial obviously is in honor of and memory of the famine that so many of our members came over with or for or because. And it's also...
And the proceeds, part of it goes into the food bank, too.
Yes, and part of the proceeds go to
Irish
the food banks.
nationwide, the Irish nation disproportionately gives to famine and hunger causes across the globe.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So
So part of the proceeds go to, okay.
Part of the proceeds will go to the upkeep of the memorial itself, and then the other portion was going to be going to the area food banks.
Now, is the memorial right at the...
It's right in front of the hall and
Okay.
on our
Celtic
property.
cross.
Okay.
It's a huge Celtic cross. It's got a garden around it, and then all the stones in the garden you can buy as little memorials to
Okay.
family names. So there's still plenty left, and if we need to enlarge the garden, we will do so.
And so how can people get tickets for that?
You can call the hall. The number is area code 518-438-8230.
Okay. And you can
And tickets will be available.
And now it's from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Yep.
Okay, so that's right in the hall.
Yeah, I believe we're planning on a cocktail reception
Okay.
right at the hall. We'll be both inside and out in the gardens, depending on, of course, the weather.
And Jack, did you know Rosemary?
Oh, very well.
Okay.
Oh, she was just so dedicated. She was American-born from Albany and just was so proud of her Irish heritage and just helped everybody.
Okay.
Now there's also 2 lectures coming up.
I was going to say, but
Yeah.
you have a lot of you
Yeah.
have a lot of speakers. It seems to be your big.
They're open to the general public.
Okay.
There's a slight charge, and it's usually the 4th Wednesday of the month. And this 4th Wednesday of the month, I won't be here, but I'll be out of the country, is on the Fenians. And the Fenians are that group that have an American as well as an Irish history. They're the same ones that invaded Canada, was Civil War veterans right after. And one of our aldermen went up there and eventually became the first Irish congressman, so it didn't hurt him to get arrested in Canada. But and then the next one, former Assemblyman Bob Riley, got back a couple of months ago from Ireland. He belongs to the Kerry Cow Association of the United States, which are these small, original, in danger of being extinct Kerry cows that the Irish government and aficionados of these small cattle that are the traditional cattle of Ireland going back to the earliest Celtic times. He went over and visited 7 farms, and there's 120 of them in a government-subsidized herd, and they don't want these guys to go extinct, so it's growing, and he described it as the trip of a lifetime, and I said, how'd you like to share it, since most people don't know what they are, what they look like, or anything else. And he owns a couple of them, and in the summer, he has them out at a farm. He rents, boards them, and then in the summer he takes them out to the Shaker Heritage Site out by the airport. So these funny-looking short cows, those are Kerry cows.
So what? So these speakers.
That's the June speaker.
Okay, and it's every 4th Wednesday.
Every 4th Wednesday. Yeah.
And are they usually of Irish? Are the topic usually Irish history?
Yes, but it could be genealogy.
But
it could be. I mean, if we can get Kerry cows in there. We're diverse, very diverse. We look for new topics.
And then, Pat, you were telling me about this other group that meets.
Yes,
we have a speaker.
DeConners Luncheon, which is the first Thursday of every month. Paul Collins runs it. It is basically open to the public. It is a lot of the old. I don't want to say old, politicians, people that were involved in city politics in various levels and various types. Anyone interested in Irish, or not really Irish, Albany.
Albany political history.
It's local history. I mean, occasionally it may touch Irish, but it's a lot of political history of various things that have happened in the city over the years. Various politicians that are well known to us, such as Erastus Corning or Dan O'Connell or any of those. We've had speakers on various subject matters. We had a speaker, the one who wrote the book on Martin H. Glenn, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, which was
Dominic Letzi.
Who was, and Martin H. Glenn was the Irish Catholic governor of New York for a short period of time. And I told you earlier that he was also had a house on Willow Street, which my grandmother was one of the domestic service.
That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show. We could do the Irish domestic service. But, there's various speakers at that. It's all basically timed so that you come in. The Ladies' Ancient Order of Hibernians are the host, and they feed you. And then you have the speaker, and you're out of there in about an hour and a half, I think.
So by 1 o'clock,
if you're on your lunch hour, you can make it.
Yep.
A number of judges go because it's not political. They can attend that.
And that's the first Thursday of every month?
First Thursday of every month.
Open to anybody?
Open to anybody. There is a fee to pay for the meal. But that's it. Anyone can come.
Starts at 12 noon?
Starts at 12 noon. They do ask for reservations because the ladies do have to make food. So Paul Collins publicizes it throughout the capital region.
Then,
but you can call the hall to get the number.
And the other one was the last Wednesday, right? Those are the main.
Yes, at 7 o'clock at night.
7 o'clock at night, okay. I didn't know so much went on down there.
It's amazing.
It is actually amazing. I mean, the main thing is we want the hall used. The other thing I didn't mention is we also do a lot of charitable work for the region, for the Capital District. I mean, the Boy Scouts come and have various functions there. I think at one point every year, the big hall is full of Girl Scout cookies as they're coming for their pickups to take them back to their customers.
It's also a voting.
It's a polling.
Okay.
Yeah. The Little League has some of their events there.
The one, there's a Little League right across.
Right around the
yeah.
corner. I don't know whether it's national or American, but
It's national.
National. We raise food continually for the Blessed Sacrament Food Pantry. Father Peyton, we have a benefit every year for Father Peyton, the Holy Rosary Crusade. We do benefits for the Irish American Heritage Museum, which is in downtown Albany, right on Broadway right now. A lot of our members go up and work at the Double H Ranch in Lake Luzerne, which is a ranch for children with life-threatening illnesses.
Oh, when they work with
They work for the clean, they before it opens, they're not obviously the therapists.
Oh,
but
okay.
They help open it by cleaning up everything and work with the Double H to prepare and clean up afterwards, and many other things that we're involved with the community. I mean, we're open to the community for whatever they need, basically.
And how many, you were telling me, you have about 500 members?
We have about 500 members in the men's division. We have another probably 200 to 300 members of the ladies division. And then all the various organizations have their own memberships.
Well, can you just explain quickly before we end, to join the AOH or you have to be Irish Catholic to join that, but anyone can join the other ones. Is that how it is?
Yes, to join the Ancient Order of Hibernians and the Ladies' Ancient Order of Hibernians, you have to be of Irish birth or descent and practicing Catholic. For the ladies, you have to be practicing Catholic, birth or descent, or married to a Hibernian. Then the Capital District Irish American Association is for anyone who's not eligible to be a Hibernian. You can join it through us. You can join it through the Capital District Irish Set Dancers are one of our sponsoring organizations. There's various organizations.
Well, it sounds like they all cross.
Yeah, the museum.
They're all crossed. A lot of the members are the same members in each one of them.
The rowing club is non-denominational.
The ladies and the men are the only two that are obviously separated by the sexes. But
okay, well, this has been some great insight into the Capital District Irish American Association, some history. Any final thoughts before we? I'll just say one quick thing. The big garage sales, June 6th and 7th. The dinner honoring Rosemary OBrien, June 14th from 3 to 6. And it sounds like there's a lot going on down there. Any final thoughts you want to get in?
Well, I think in a world that's getting very homogenized and very much the same. I say you could go up at blindfolded, go up in a helicopter. They drop you down in a shopping mall. You wouldn't know whether you were in Ohio, New Jersey, or Florida. And there's a lot of sameness in the modern world. A lot of small businesses are merged into big businesses. And I think there's a hungering for people to be more than just a number. And they want to know, where did I get my name? And how did my people get here? And what role did we have over the years? And to experience the music and the culture and the uniqueness of it, I think is something that people hunger for, individuality. And having a place that works in so many different ways and is welcoming to all people, but it touches people intellectually, sports and the camaraderie and the dancing and the music and the charitable works and all. I think it's a real community center that has a value and really fits into a need that modern Americans have today.
There's a lot of writing and articles and newspapers and magazines about the loss of a lot of this. So I think you're right. People are.
The other thing I'd like to mention is that I grew up in what was called then the Hibernian Hall. Kids were always welcome. Kids are still welcome.
That's true.
We are very family-oriented. Most of our programs, if not all of them, there is no age limit. We encourage our families to bring children. We have movie nights for the children. In fact, one of our big things at Christmas is we have a movie night where after the movie is over, all the children come in with the parents to the bar room they're not drinking, but we do sing songs of Irish and Christmas songs to sort of bring in. We usually have the mic going from child to child so that the children are involved with it. In fact, most of the parents don't even sing; they just watch the kids. Although we do have parent-daughter and parent-child, groups that come up because the kid won't sing without the parent or whatever. We're going to be trying that hopefully this year or next year in March to have an Irish night like that, where they just do Irish songs, and we'll teach them the easier ones, obviously, but give them a taste of their heritage. So when we bring our children to the hall, and to all these events, whether they be bands or whether they be step dancing or whatever, or like even the Famine Memorial, we're introducing them at an early age to the culture. And, I was introduced as a child, and, I've been involved ever since. So to me, it's a great way to get families doing things together.
And you met your wife at the hall.
And I met my wife at the hall.
Well, this has been great. Thanks for coming, Jack and Pat. So we will see you next time on Getting to Know You.